When people think of Iran, they're usually political tension, strict laws, and headlines filled with conflict. To much of the world, Iran feels distant, mysterious, and difficult to understand. But what if almost everything you've heard only tells part of the story? Because beyond the politics lies one of the oldest civilizations on Earth, a land of magnificent palaces, ancient cities, colorful bazaars, and poetry that has survived for thousands of years. Iran was once the heart of powerful empires that shaped history long before many modern nations even existed. And surprisingly, its people are known for something many outsiders never expect: extraordinary warmth and hospitality. But here's the twist in Iran. Poetry isn't just literature, it's part of everyday life. People quote poems in conversations, memorize verses by heart, and gather around art, music, and storytelling in ways that feel timeless. While the world often sees Iran through the lens of politics, many travelers leave talking about the kindness of its people and the beauty hidden behind the stereotypes. So how did a country with such deep culture and history become one of the most misunderstood places on Earth? And if the version we usually hear about Iran is incomplete, what else has the world been missing? Landscapes of Iran. Most people imagine Iran as an endless stretch of dry desert, but the northern edge of the country feels almost like another world. Along the coast of the Caspian Sea, the air is heavy with moisture and the hills are buried beneath dense green forests. Rain falls often here, leaving the roads wet and dark beneath rows of tall trees. Villages appear suddenly through the mist clusters of red-roofed houses surrounded by rice fields, tea farms, and narrow streams running through the grass. In the early morning, fog settles low across the valleys, hiding parts of the mountains behind pale gray clouds. The forests smell of damp soil, moss, and wood smoke drifting from chimneys. Water collects on leaves and slides slowly into muddy paths where farmers walk in rubber boots beneath soft rain. The entire region feels quiet and enclosed, as if the mountains are protecting it from the harsher landscapes further south. As the road climbs higher into the Alborz Mountains, the air becomes colder and thinner. Sharp cliffs rise beside winding roads, while snow remains on the upper peaks long after winter has ended below. Small roadside cafes sit beside mountain passes where trucks crawl through heavy fog. At sunset, the mountains turn deep blue and charcoal beneath fading light, while thin lines of snow glow faintly against the dark rock. Then comes Tehran, massive, crowded, and pressed tightly against the mountains. The city spreads across a dry valley filled with concrete buildings, highways, and endless traffic. During summer afternoons, heat rises from the streets in visible waves, blurring distant towers beneath pale white skies. Dust drifts through the air, softening the outlines of apartment blocks and billboards. Yet, above the city, the mountains remain cold and silent. Snow covers the northern ridges, while warm wind blows through the crowded streets below. In winter, icy air slides down from the peaks and settles over the city in the evening. Street vendors sell roasted chestnuts beside glowing storefronts, while headlights reflect off wet pavement after sudden rain. At night, Tehran becomes a sea of orange lights stretching toward the mountains. Cars move endlessly through wide highways, while smoke and fog mix beneath neon signs and apartment windows glowing in the dark. Further south, the landscape empties into desert. The Dasht-e feels almost unreal in its silence. Huge, salt plains spread outward beneath an enormous sky where the horizon seems to disappear completely. The ground is pale beige during the day. But under direct sunlight, the salt reflects bright white light so intensely it hurts the eyes. The heat changes the air itself. Distant mountains shake in the horizon like reflections in water. Wind moves across the sand in long, invisible waves, pushing dust over abandoned roads and dry riverbeds. Sometimes there is nothing for miles except cracked earth and telephone poles stretching into the distance. Sunset transforms the desert more dramatically than anywhere else in Iran. The light changes minute by minute, yellow becoming orange, orange turning copper, then slowly fading into deep purple shadows beneath a dark blue sky. After nightfall, the desert becomes completely silent except for wind brushing against stone and sand. The stars appear sharp and bright without city lights, filling the sky from horizon to horizon. In the middle of the desert stands Yazd, a city built almost entirely from mud brick, the color of dried clay. From above, the rooftops blend into the surrounding desert so perfectly that the city appears carved directly from the earth itself. The streets are narrow and shaded, designed centuries ago to protect people from the brutal summer heat. High walls block sunlight during the afternoon, leaving long strips of shadow across the alleyways. Wooden doors painted faded blue or dark brown open into hidden courtyards filled with trees and small pools of water. Above the city rise hundreds of wind catchers, tall towers with open vents designed to pull cool air into homes. Even during the hottest months, a faint breeze moves through the old buildings. In the evening, the walls absorb the final orange sunlight and begin to glow softly beneath hanging lanterns. The scent of saffron tea, baked bread, and smoke drifts through the streets while voices echo quietly between mud brick walls. Rooftops fill with people after sunset, escaping the heat and watching the stars appear above the desert sky. Western Iran rises into the Zagros Mountains, where the air becomes cooler and greener again. Long valleys cut between steep rocky slopes covered with oak forests and wild grass. During spring, red poppies and yellow flowers spread across the hillsides, while snow still rests on distant peaks. Villages built from pale stone cling to mountain slopes above narrow rivers. Smoke rises from chimneys during cold mornings, while shepherds guide sheep through rocky paths surrounded by fog. The roads twist sharply along cliffs and mountain passes. In winter, heavy snow blocks villages for days at a time, covering rooftops and trees in thick white layers. Yet life in these mountains continues despite the difficult conditions. Families store wood and food carefully before winter arrives, knowing storms can isolate entire communities from the outside world. Inside homes, thick carpets cover the floors, while kettles of tea remain warm beside small stoves throughout the day. Near the Persian Gulf, the atmosphere changes completely. The air becomes hot, salty, and tropical. Palm trees line crowded streets, while fishing boats painted turquoise, white, and faded blue float beside busy ports. The sea looks metallic under the afternoon sun, reflecting silver light across the water. By evening, the color deepens into dark violet, while warm wind carries the smell of salt, diesel fuel, grilled fish, and humid ocean air through the streets. Markets remain active long after sunset as people gather outside small cafes, drinking tea in the heavy nighttime heat. The sound of waves mixes with conversations, motorbikes, and the distant calls of fishermen returning toward shore beneath strings of harbor lights. On Hormuz Island, the landscape becomes almost surreal. The soil itself turns red, orange, and dark crimson beneath bare, rocky hills. Black volcanic rocks sit beside bright red beaches where waves crash against colored cliffs. During sunset, the entire island seems to glow beneath deep orange light, while the Persian Gulf reflects shades of blue and gold. Walking across the island often feels less like crossing a coastline and more like moving through another planet, shaped by wind, salt, and volcanic stone over thousands of years. Iran is not one single landscape. It shifts constantly, from rain-soaked forests to frozen mountains, from silent deserts to tropical coastlines. Every region feels like a different country, connected by long roads, ancient cities, and changing skies. And as the landscape changes, so do the rhythms of human life. The mountains, deserts, forests, and coastlines do more than shape the horizon. They shape the pace of conversation, the design of homes, the food placed on tables, and the routines people repeat every morning and night. To understand Iran fully means not only seeing its geography, but also watching how millions of people quietly adapt themselves to it every single day. The people of Iran In Tehran, life begins before sunrise. Bakers pull flatbread from stone ovens while the streets are still dark. stacking warm rounds of sangak onto wooden shelves, dusted with flour. By 7 in the morning, the city is already moving, women balancing grocery bags through crowded sidewalks, students packed into metro stations, mechanics lifting metal shutters outside repair shops. People adapt to the pressure of the city by creating small pockets of pause. In the middle of heavy traffic, men sit on plastic stools beside tiny tea stands, stirring sugar cubes into black tea while motorcycles scream past them. Families escape crowded apartments at night by gathering in parks, spreading carpets directly onto the grass beneath yellow streetlights. Children kick soccer balls between trees, while grandparents pour tea from silver thermoses brought from home. In desert cities like Yazd, people shape their lives around heat. During the afternoon, many streets fall quiet because the sun becomes too intense to stand under for long. Shopkeepers retreat into shaded rooms behind thick mud brick walls, while ceiling fans spin slowly above stacks of spices and fabric. Life returns after sunset. Rooftops fill with families escaping the trapped heat inside their homes. Children run across narrow alleys, while older women peel pistachios in courtyards lit by weak yellow lamps. Many homes are built around inner courtyards with pools of water and small trees planted in the center. These spaces are not decoration, they are survival. The walls keep out desert heat, while the water cools the air moving through the rooms. Even the architecture reflects how carefully people learned to live with the climate around them. In workshops hidden behind wooden doors, carpet weavers spend hours knotting intricate patterns by hand. Their fingers move automatically across threads of red, blue, gold, and dark green, while radios play softly in the background. Some designs take months to finish. Others take years. In the Zagros Mountains, nomadic families still move with the seasons. During warmer months, they guide sheep and goats through high mountain valleys where grass remains green longer than in the lowlands. Entire families travel together, carrying blankets, cooking pots, and tents tied onto trucks or animals. Women knead dough outdoors before sunrise, pressing bread against hot metal surfaces balanced over open fire. Shepherds spend entire days walking rocky hillsides beneath changing weather, watching clouds carefully because storms move quickly through the mountains. Children grow up learning how to recognize safe paths, cold springs, and sudden shifts in the wind. In remote villages, winter changes daily life completely. Snow cuts off roads for days at a time, so families prepare months ahead by storing rice, dried herbs, firewood, and sacks of flour inside their homes. Along the Persian Gulf, people organize their lives around heat and water. Fishermen leave before dawn, while the air is still cool enough to work. Boats painted blue and white drift quietly into dark water, while the shoreline glows faintly behind them. By midday, the heat becomes exhausting. Men unload fish beneath shaded roofs, while sweat darkens their clothes within minutes. Markets smell of salt, diesel fuel, limes, and drying nets. Vendors cut tuna and shrimp on metal tables, while ceiling fans push humid air through crowded alleys. On islands like Hormuz, people build homes painted in bright colors: turquoise, red, yellow standing out against the dry volcanic landscape. During the hottest hours, streets empty almost completely. Life shifts toward evening, when ocean wind finally cools the walls and families gather outside again. Younger generations in Iran move through a constant balance between tradition and modern life. University students crowd bookstores and cafes, discussing films, music, politics, and exams over endless cups of tea. In subway cars, women adjust colorful scarves while scrolling through phones filled with global music, fashion, and social media. At home, grandparents still recite poetry from memory during family dinners. Relatives sit closely around long tablecloths, spread directly on carpets, sharing rice, herbs, yogurt, and grilled meat, while conversations continue for hours. Guests rarely leave quickly. Fruit, tea, and sweets keep appearing long after dinner is finished. Even in crowded cities, many people maintain routines shaped by older rhythms, buying fresh bread every morning, visiting bazaars instead of supermarkets, gathering with extended family every week, escaping cities during holidays to sleep beside rivers or mountains. What stands out most in Iran is not grand monuments or ancient history, but the way ordinary people continuously adapt to difficult conditions without stopping daily life. In cities struggling with traffic, sanctions, heat, inflation, or isolation, people still fill parks at night, still gather around tea, still open shops every morning. A mechanic repairs engines beneath flickering lights in a dusty alley. A grandmother waters flowers on a tiny apartment balcony overlooking crowded highways. A baker works through the night so bread will be ready before dawn. A fisherman untangles nets under humid morning skies, while mountain shepherds prepare for another freezing winter. The same spirit of adaptation also shaped the places people built. In many parts of Iran, architecture became a way of surviving the environment rather than resisting it. Few cities show this more clearly than Yazd. The unique features of this place. At first glance, the old city of Yazd appears almost swallowed by the desert around it. Endless mud brick buildings spread across the dry earth in shades of sand, clay, and faded orange, blending so naturally with the landscape that the city seems carved directly from the ground itself. But above the rooftops, hundreds of strange towers rise into the pale sky. Some are tall and narrow, others wide, with several openings facing different directions, their surfaces shaped by centuries of heat, dust, and wind. During sunset, they become dark silhouettes, glowing beneath orange light, while shadows stretch across the rooftops below. These towers are called badgirs, or wind catchers, and they were built because surviving summer in central Iran was never easy. Long before electricity or air conditioners existed, the people of Yazd faced unbearable heat that trapped itself inside walls and streets long after sunset. But instead of trying to escape the desert, they began studying it. They watched how wind moved above the city, how sunlight changed temperature, and how shade created pockets of cool air. Slowly, generation after generation, they built a city designed not to fight the environment, but to live alongside it. The badgirs became one of their most remarkable inventions. Openings at the top of each tower captured passing wind and directed it downward into homes, storage rooms, and underground chambers below the streets. Sometimes the air moved across cool water before entering the buildings, lowering the temperature even more. Inside many traditional houses, rooms remained surprisingly cool even during the hottest afternoons of summer. Narrow alleyways were also built carefully, creating long shadows that protected people from direct sunlight while allowing air to circulate through the city. Thick mud brick walls absorbed heat slowly during the day and released it gradually after sunset, helping homes stay cooler for longer periods. As the city adapted itself to the desert, daily life began moving according to the rhythm of heat and cooling air. During the hottest hours of the afternoon, Yazd becomes strangely quiet. Sunlight floods the narrow alleyways while shopkeepers retreat deeper into shaded rooms behind wooden doors. Even the streets themselves were designed to protect people from the sun. The alleyways remain narrow, so buildings create shade for each other throughout the day, while covered passageways trap cooler air beneath them. Inside homes, families gather around courtyards hidden behind high walls where small gardens and water pools soften the dry atmosphere. Children play beside the water, while older relatives drink tea beneath shaded arches, listening to the faint sound of wind moving through the towers overhead. But as evening approaches and the temperature finally begins to fall, the city slowly wakes up again. Families climb narrow staircases carrying carpets, pillows, fruit, and kettles of tea onto their rooftops to escape the heat still trapped inside lower rooms. Conversations stretch late into the night, while warm air drifts softly across the city. From above, the rooftops begin to feel connected, almost like one giant shared living space spread across the desert beneath the endless sky. And when night fully settles over Yazd, the wind catchers reveal why they remained essential for centuries. Heat stored inside the walls throughout the day slowly escapes into the cooling darkness while fresh air moves through the towers once again. Above the rooftops, the wind catchers stand silently against the stars, like ancient guardians watching over the city below. Soft yellow lights glow through narrow alleyways, while distant voices echo gently between mud brick walls. Somewhere across the city, the evening call to prayer rises briefly into the night before fading back into silence. Grandparents still explain to children how the towers work. Families still sleep beneath cooling systems designed by ancestors who understood the desert long before modern technology existed. The city does not preserve the wind catchers as relics from the past. Instead, Yazd continues living through them every single night. That is exactly why the wind catchers remain unforgettable today. They are not simply beautiful structures rising above an ancient desert city. They represent a completely different way humans once lived with nature. Modern cities often try to overpower harsh climates using machines running constantly behind sealed glass walls. Air conditioners consume huge amounts of electricity while buildings separate themselves entirely from the environment outside. But centuries ago, the people of Yazd chose another path. Instead of resisting the desert, they observed it carefully and shaped their lives around its patterns. They studied wind direction, airflow, sunlight, shade, and water, then transformed those natural forces into architecture capable of cooling an entire city. Today, architects around the world study Yazd again because these ancient ideas suddenly feel modern in a world searching for sustainable solutions. Yet beyond engineering, the wind catchers carry something far more human. They were never built for kings or monuments. They were created so ordinary families could survive brutal summers, sleep through hot nights, and continue building lives in one of the driest places on Earth. And even now, as warm desert wind drifts across the rooftops each evening, the towers continue breathing cool air into the city exactly as they did centuries ago. Beyond the desert towns and wind catchers of central Iran, life unfolds differently in the Zagros Mountains. Working while the mountains wake up. Before sunrise fully reaches the Zagros Mountains, movement already begins inside the nomadic camps of Iran. Shepherds step out into the cold morning air, pulling thick jackets tightly around themselves, while sheep gather restlessly outside the tents. Women knead dough beside small fires, pressing flatbread against hot metal pans, while kettles of tea boil nearby. Smoke rises slowly into the pale blue sky as children carry water containers across the rocky ground, still wet from the night cold. Nobody works alone for long. While hands continue moving, feeding animals, repairing ropes, folding blankets, conversations move naturally through the camp. Older shepherds discuss weather conditions and whether grass will remain green higher in the mountains. Someone jokes quietly about stubborn goats wandering too far the evening before. A younger boy listens silently while tying supplies onto a donkey, learning simply by staying close to the adults around him. Even during difficult work, talking never fully disappears. Voices travel softly between tents, while the mountains slowly brighten around them. As the sun slowly climbs higher, the entire camp becomes more active. Dogs bark sharply as herds begin moving toward open hillsides covered with grass and scattered wildflowers. Some women pack food into cloth bags for family members who will spend the day farther up the mountains. Others wash cooking pots near narrow streams flowing down from the rocky slopes. Children chase each other between tents for a few moments before being called back to help with daily responsibilities. Despite the hard conditions, there is a strong feeling of connection everywhere in the camp. Every task, whether large or small, is shared among family members and neighbors. Life in the mountains demands patience, cooperation, and endurance, but it also creates deep bonds between people who depend on one another every single day. As the day continues, the camp spreads across the hillside in small groups of activity. Some shepherds guide animals toward fresh grass, while others stay behind repairing tents or sorting supplies. Women sit together weaving carpets by hand, their fingers moving automatically through red, blue, and gold patterns passed down through generations. Nearby, tea continues boiling almost constantly over small fires. People stop beside one another throughout the day, not only to rest, but simply to talk. Conversations move easily between practical things and personal memories, the condition of the animals, stories from difficult winters, relatives living in distant cities below the mountains. Children drift between groups listening quietly while older relatives speak. Even silence feels comfortable here because everyone remains surrounded by familiar voices and routines. Wind moves through the grass, while sheep bells echo softly across the valley. The mountains decide how people live. Conversation is what makes the difficult routines feel shared instead of lonely. As evening approaches, the light over the mountains begins turning gold and orange. The herds slowly return toward the camp, while dust rises behind them along narrow paths. Fires are lit again for cooking, and the smell of bread, rice, and warm milk spreads through the cold air. Families gather close together outside the tents, eating from shared dishes, while darkness slowly settles across the valley. Older men continue talking quietly about journeys made years ago, while younger children grow sleepy beside their mothers. Above them, the sky becomes filled with stars untouched by city lights. Although life in the Zagros Mountains is physically demanding, moments like these give the camp a feeling of peace, stability, and belonging that has survived for generations. When evening finally arrives, the temperature drops quickly across the mountains and the camp slowly gathers closer together again. Animals settle near the tents, while small fires glow against the dark hillsides. Families sit on carpets spread directly over the ground, drinking hot tea from small glasses warmed between their hands. The day's work does not end suddenly. Someone still repairs a saddle beside the fire, while another person brushes dust from blankets before night. But the pace becomes slower now. Conversations stretch longer beneath the open sky, while smoke drifts upward into the cold air. Older shepherds speak about routes they traveled decades earlier, remembering valleys where rivers once ran stronger, or winters that buried entire camps beneath snow. Children lie quietly beside their parents, listening while stars slowly fill the sky above them. There are no city lights, no traffic, no walls separating people from the landscape around them. Only wind, low voices, and the sound of sheep moving softly in the darkness. Through these ordinary moments, working side by side, sharing tea, talking beneath the mountains after sunset, nomadic life feels less like something distant from the past and more like a quiet world, still continuing high above modern Iran. Carrying old ways through a changing world. Yet beneath those quiet evenings and familiar conversations, nomadic life in Iran has become increasingly difficult to maintain. Roads now cut through many traditional migration routes. Younger generations often leave for cities searching for stable jobs, and harsh winters or long droughts can quickly destroy entire herds that families spent years raising. Even daily life in the mountains has grown more expensive. Fuel, animal feed, medicine, and water are harder to afford than before, while modern life continues pulling people toward towns below where electricity, schools, and permanent houses promise easier living. Still, many families continue returning to the mountains each season, not because the life is easy, but because movement itself has become part of who they are. Older shepherds still know the safest paths through the valleys without needing maps. Women continue weaving patterns learned from mothers and grandmothers whose hands moved through the same colors generations earlier. Children grow up recognizing weather changes by the smell of the wind or the movement of clouds across the peaks. Around the evening fires, conversations now sometimes include mobile phones, city relatives, or worries about the future. Yet beside those changes, many older routines remain untouched. Boiling tea before sunrise, moving camps with the seasons, sitting together after dark while sheep settle quietly nearby. The mountains continue shaping daily life just as they always did. And although the modern world moves closer each year, parts of nomadic life still survive not through grand resistance, but through ordinary repetition, through people waking before sunrise, packing tents, guiding animals forward, and continuing the same journeys their families once crossed, long before roads or cities reached these valleys. Long after thinking about Iran, what remains in the mind is not only the deserts, the mountains, or the ancient cities. It is the feeling of ordinary life continuing quietly inside those landscapes. A shepherd waking before sunrise while cold wind moves across the Zagros mountains. A shopkeeper pouring another glass of tea inside the bazaar while voices echo through old corridors. Families climbing onto rooftops in Yazd at night, waiting for the desert air to cool enough to breathe comfortably again. None of these moments try to appear extraordinary. They happen slowly, almost invisibly, repeated day after day, until they become part of the land itself. That quiet repetition feels important in Iran. Life there often seems shaped by difficult conditions, harsh climates, economic pressure, isolation, distances between cities and mountains, yet people continue adjusting themselves around those realities instead of stopping because of them. Conversations continue beside market stalls. Nomadic families still move through valleys with their animals. Wind catchers still pull cool air into homes built centuries ago. What lingers most is the sense that identity in Iran is not preserved through grand speeches or monuments alone, but through routines that survive across generations. Through tea shared at night, carpets woven by hand, stories repeated beside fires, and roads crossed season after season beneath changing skies. And perhaps that is why Iran feels difficult to fully explain from the outside. It is not only a place defined by politics, history, or headlines. It is also a country where many people still live close to the rhythms of wind, mountains, heat, conversation, and memory, carrying older ways of life quietly forward, even as the modern world keeps moving around them.